Okay, welcome everyone. Today's topic is the newest techniques in building your six-figure wholesaling business. Um, so before we get started, who has done wholesales in the past? Could be one or more. Anybody on the line? Who's bought wholesale deals from a wholesaler in the past, or who's worked with a wholesaler recently or in the past? Anybody? Okay, so we are going to start with the basics, right? What is it that it takes to be successful doing wholesaling? But before we do that, we're going to start with the explanation of what wholesaling is. So pretty much wholesaling is one of the three exit strategies that you have in real estate. So you either buy and hold, fix and flip, or wholesale. So wholesale, pretty much, you are not buying the property. Okay, what you're doing is you are selling the rights of the contract to an end buyer. Okay, now what are the benefits of wholesaling and why is it so critical? Well, why is it so important? Especially now with the pandemic, it is extremely appealing to take on the wholesaling strategy. And the reason why is because nowadays, with the pandemic, there are so many distressed owners that they're going to lose their property to the foreclosure process. So now we as investors, wholesalers, can help these owners with the most important solution they're looking for, not to lose their home. So the owner will either want to stay in their home or sell their home. Okay, so whatever their need is, then we're going to be able to help them. So now, what does it take to be successful when it comes to doing great deals, great wholesales or assignments? Okay, so what it takes is be able to build rapport with the seller. We have to understand exactly what they're looking for, where they're at in their situation, because they have a situation that they're going through of distress. It could be emotional distress. Somebody may have passed away and they inherited the property, or they might have lost their job and therefore unable to pay the mortgage and leading into foreclosure. So what is it, how do we find these owners, first of all? And then once we find them, how do we go about talking to them and getting a deal on the contract, right? So that we can wholesale the rights to it. So let's start with the basics. Where do you find these distressed owners? Okay, there are plenty of them, and there are many ways. So you can do for sale by owners. One of the websites that we love is Zillow. There are so many leads in Zillow, and they're free leads. Okay. Now let me show you. I'm going to share my screen in just a second, but I'm just going to mention the different types. So for sale by owners, we also do bandit signs. So we place ads or signs in busy streets near Home Depots, Walmarts, by some big intersection. We also do cold calling, right? So we cold call people that are in financial distress that we know they are in pre-foreclosure. They've missed mortgage payments and therefore they can lose their home to the foreclosure process. We also target owners by having a distressed or vacant property. Okay, so we do driving for dollars and door knocking. So those are the main lead types that you can utilize to get leads. Now the question is, once you find a distressed lead, okay, what is the next step? What is it that you're gonna be able to do to help the seller with? Okay, so the way we do things is we have scripts that we use that are very, very simple. I'm going to share these scripts with you, some of them, so that you can ask the right questions and be able, most importantly, to listen to what they need and understand their motivation. So that's going to be our role, our job, to find out where they're in the process, how motivated they are to sell the property, because there are going to be some owners that they might be in denial. So they're not going to sell their property. They're not going to take action. They're not going to do anything right now. So we call them cold leads. There's some other owners that are going to be a little bit more motivated, but they're not ready to sell the property. They're not ready to move out. They're not ready to change the status quo anytime soon, even though they know they're in financial distress. So we qualify those leads as warm leads. And finally, we like to focus on the hot leads. So these are the people that they have to sell their property in the next 30 to 60 days, else they're going to lose their home, okay? Or these are people who may have inherited properties that they have no clue about. These are properties that have a lot of equity and they just want to cash out, right? They have no money for the repairs. They don't want to deal with the broker. They don't want to do anything. They just want to cash out, pay the creditors, meaning whatever is left on the mortgage, if any, and cash out. So those are the sellers that we are targeting, okay? These are the sellers that we want to engage with. And most importantly, once you happen to find one, what's super critical, once you identify their motivation level, the next step is to follow up. That's going to be the key, right? So we have to follow up with the sellers until they sign the contracts. When they're ready to move forward, then we get them to sign the contract. So what I'm going to show you is a couple of scripts that we use. Let me pull it up. So this is going to give you an idea of what we're looking for in terms of identifying the owner's motivation, okay? So let me pull this up. Let me share my screen, and we'll share this script with all of you so that you can take some action on it. So here's a script. So for instance, if we're targeting for sell by owners, so these are owners who want to sell the property ASAP, they have a motivation. So here, this is the script that we typically follow. So step number one, we want to understand the description and the condition of the property, okay? So we're going to ask them about all the details and rehab upgrades on the property itself. And then once we go over that, okay, the description of the property, how many stories and so forth, obviously we're going to find most of this information online, but if not, we always want to confirm this information with the seller, okay? Now, the next set of questions are highlighted with this anchor. So these are very, very important because they're going to help you qualify the lead. So we want to work right away with hot leads. So why are you selling, right? There's got to be a reason why they're selling. Are they behind the mortgage? Did they inherit the property? Do they not have the money for the repair? So this is going to be critical because that's going to help us tailor the offer we make the seller. The next one is, does it need repairs? This is going to be critical for us to understand because in order for us to be able to help the seller, we need to understand how much it's going to take to repair the house. Because if we're going to get the property in the contract and wholesale the property to an end buyer, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the end buyer. The end buyer is going to be either a flipper or an individual who's going to buy and hold the property, okay? So we want to empathize, put ourselves in their shoes and understand the numbers. So there's going to be enough meat in the bone. Let me give you an example. So if the seller is asking, for instance, for a 2-bedroom, one bath, 150,000, okay? However, the property may need 50,000 in rehab, right? And the ARV or after repair value in the property is 200,000, right? So right off the bat, the owner, we know that the owner is asking for too much. So we want to understand how they're coming up with the number. Again, it's all about listening, understanding, first of all, why are you selling and how soon you need to sell. Number two, any upgrades to the property. And we obviously need to see the inside of the property to estimate the rehab, the scope of work. what is going to take to bring this property to its previous glory, okay? Because based on those two numbers, we're going to be able to come up with an offer, okay? The right number so that we make money as a wholesaler, and the end buyer, whoever we assign the contract to, also makes a profit either doing a flip or a buy and hold. So we truly need to not only understand the motivation of the seller, but also the numbers on the property for things to make sense. So these are the three numbers that you need to know. How much their after repair value is going to be, the rehab amount or renovation dollar amount, and the most we should offer the seller. And oftentimes, these motivated sellers, they want to right away sell the property, right? Move out of the property. They don't want to know anything about the property, so they'll be flexible as far as working with you on the offer, okay? And then the next question is, what is your asking price? How much do you think your house is worth today? So again, we want to find out how this seller came up with the asking price, right? Are they working with a broker? How do they know how much their property is worth? Nowadays, a lot of sellers are savvy, right? Through technology, they know roughly what the comps are for a similar property in the neighborhood. So we obviously need to understand when we talk to the seller what the comps are for that particular or subject property are in the neighborhood. So that's going to be super, super critical for us to do our research before we engaged in a conversation with the seller, okay? So we always have to prepare. That's going to be super critical. So now, once we understand their motivation and information about the property when it comes to the rehab, then we move on to understanding any liens on the property. And they could be obviously like a mortgage, it could be a water bill, it could be tax liens, and so forth. So these are encumbrances, liens that need to be satisfied before we can convey clean title to the end buyer. Okay, so it's super important for us to understand how much is owed on the property, okay? From the mortgage, any mechanics liens, and so forth. So something that is super important, and wholesalers make this mistake, that they oftentimes get a property on the contract without doing a title search, okay? So guess what? What happens is that they get super excited, they get a property on the contract, and they do the marketing, right, to sell the rights of the contract to an end buyer, just to find out a few days before closing that they cannot convey clear title to that property to the end buyer. And the reason why is because that particular property may have a cloud on the title, so they might have encumbrances, it might have liens, all adding up to a number that no longer makes sense to wholesale the property, okay? So that's super important to find out from the seller, and also we need to confirm that by running a title search, okay? A light title search on the property, just to double check all the information given by the owner, okay? That is mistake number one, that many wholesale deals fall through the cracks because wholesaler is not doing proper due diligence, okay? And then talking about wholesalers, you know, Illinois, there's a new law that you can only do one wholesale deal every 12 months. Now it's become a licensed activity. So you need to have a real estate broker's license to be able to do wholesaling. And the reason why is because the state wants to protect the public, okay? Because in the past, many wholesalers misled the public, okay? They pretty much made the public lose a lot of money, right? They paid them too little. They never were able to wholesale the properties. So now the state stepped in and wants to regulate every single wholesale activity that happens in the state, okay? So super important if you're thinking about doing wholesales that you get your real estate license. Now here goes on and on the information about all the liens, mortgages, payments, okay? And then something that is super important when meeting the seller is that you need to get them to sign the contract, right? So we're also gonna share with you the contract that we use. It's a 2-page non-invasive contract that all it says is that you're committing to buy the property as is in the next 30 days or so, okay, after execution of the contract. So it's super important that you follow the steps to make it a successful wholesale deal. I'm going to share with you now what the contract looks like. Okay. Okay, so we'll quickly share what the contract looks like. Okay. Something that is super critical when it comes to doing wholesales is that you have on line number 1 this clause and or assigns. Okay, that is what's going to give you the right to assign this contract to an end buyer. Okay, we're getting this property on the contract, but not only that we may not close on the property, but that's going to give us the right to assign the rights of this contract to somebody else. Okay, so in here you are going to be able to fill this out. Okay, you're going to put in the seller's name, the property address, and what the purchase price is going to be, where we're going to hold title in the title company, because we're going to the way it works is once we get the property in the contract and we're going to wholesale it to a third party, we're going to have the third party wire escrow money to the title company. And that escrow money will be in the amount somewhere between $2,000 to $5,000, non-refundable, okay? That is a way for us to ensure that we have somebody that will be able to follow through on the transaction. And in here, we're putting the total purchase price. So any money that we leave on the table as escrow money between us and the seller is going to be here. So typically, we like to keep this under $500. And then we go on to the contract. So again, it's a 2-page non-invasive contract. So we don't want to intimidate the seller, right, with a lengthy 12, 15-page contract. We want to keep it as simple as possible. And then we have these 3 clauses, 1 through 3, that we're going to cross out. Okay, we want to make sure that the seller feels as special as to having no mortgage contingencies on this deal that is going to be a cash offer, number 1. Number 2, we're waiving any inspections to be done on the property, because we have already seen the property from the inside, or at least done a virtual tour or seen some properties of the property, so we know and have a good idea of what it takes to rehab the property. And finally, that we won't have a real estate broker as an intermediate, okay, to the transaction. So the seller is going to save money on the commission. We just want to guarantee the seller a net bottom line, okay? We're going to tell them, we're going to pay you, let's say, $100,000 net. All the closing expenses, all the fees from the brokers are not going to be paid by the seller. Closing expenses are going to always be paid by the end buyer, okay, by the cash buyer or investor. We don't have a broker to pay a commission to. And then the next clauses that we use pretty much protect the end buyer or the cash buyer, okay? So we have some notice of no agency relationship, meaning that we're stipulating, this is one of the most important clauses, that if we're a licensed broker, that we're not legally representing the seller, Okay, so that's what this means, notice of no agency relationship. Okay, and then we're going to prorate taxes to 105%, which means that the seller is going to need to pay a 5% increase on the previous year's tax bill. Okay, so that's it. It's super, super simple what the offer and the contract is all about. This is the ultimate objective when we meet a seller. Okay, the objective is to get them to sign a contract, because without a contract, we have nothing. Okay, now something that is really important when it comes to wholesaling is that when you are going to assign the rights of this contract to an end buyer for a fee less than, I would say, 15,000, then you can assign the contract. What it means is that we have an assignment contract to the end buyer in which we're going to disclose our finder's fee, our wholesaling fee of 15,000. Okay. However, if the fee is greater than 15,000, then we're going to need to do a double close, meaning that we cannot disclose what our profit is going to be to the seller and to the end buyer, because oftentimes deals fall apart because of it. They believe that we're not adding value to the property, and therefore they just don't feel comfortable and they end up canceling the deal. So it is super, super important that we do or arrange a double close if the assignment fee is going to be greater than 15,000. But anything below 15,000, it's okay to do an assignment. Okay. Are there any questions so far? So I'm gonna show you a couple of examples of what it looks like when it's filled out. A couple of so we run a wholesale inner circle group, okay, in which we have about 60 wholesalers. We go after exclusively off-market properties, right? So this is a property that we got on the contract, and we were able to wholesale pretty much the same day because the shortage of inventory. So this is in Austin, okay? So what I want to show you is this is what we do when we partner up with our wholesalers. We are in charge of the disposition, meaning marketing the property. So once you get a property on the contract, then you need to market the property to cash buyers, to the end buyer. So this is what we help with. We're going to do a blast to our cash buyers network of this particular example, right? So we're going to put together everything that the end buyer needs to know. Okay, so all the details about the property, we're going to give them the after repair value. We're going to give them an estimate of how much the repairs are going to be, how much the rents are in that neighborhood or for that particular house, and we're going to give them a list of the comps. Okay, all the comps are going to be listed, and then obviously we're going to include some pictures of the property from the inside. Okay, and then we also give them the area report so they understand what the area is all about. And this is an example of the contract that we have filled out. So let me maximize this. I'm going to make it 150. Perfect. Okay, so this property in Austin, we got it on the contract for 110. Okay, so we didn't have to put any money down when we got it on the contract. We got it on the contract a couple of weeks ago, and it's supposed to close very soon on May 17th. Okay, so right here, it's exactly the same contract that I showed you earlier. So this is the contract between the wholesaler and the seller, okay? And then once we market the property, like in this case, we did, and we got an end buyer, then the next step is to work closely with the end buyer and the title company, just to make sure that everything is on schedule, that the funding and the closing is scheduled as stipulated in the contract. Else, we need to make extensions on the original contract with the seller, okay? But in a nutshell, wholesaling is a strategy that it's easy to get into, except that obviously you need to get a license if you're going to do this constantly in your exit strategies. And number two, you are going to need to spend or have a marketing budget, okay? Because you are going to spend money on bandit signs, mailers, for sale by owners calls. You're going to need to be driving for dollars. You're going to need to do cold calling, door knocking. So all of that takes time and money. So leads are not going to come easily. It's just a matter of consistency. That's going to be the key, and discipline to reach out to off-market leads, okay? But in a nutshell, wholesaling is a very lucrative exit strategy, and nowadays with the shortage of inventory, you can make great money very easily when you have a great deal on the contract, okay? Are there any questions on the line so far?
Yeah, I have a question, Hugo.
Yes.
All right. My name is Paris. Great presentation. I'm enjoying everything, Hugo.
Thank you.
What I want to know is about how many deals do you think you should be doing before you're ready to start like scaling and hiring people to help you with your systems?
You know, great question, Paris. My recommendation is that you need to go through at least one deal yourself so that you understand A through Z. Once you have that in place, then you can start to hire virtual assistants to help you, let's say, with cold calling, to help you do mailers, to help you do follow-ups. So that's going to be very important to get help once you go through the entire process, at least once, and then you need to document everything in detail so that the outcome expected by your virtual assistants is successful, is as you expect it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So great question, Paris. So we started this group, the wholesaling inner circle. We've done 5 wholesales so far in the last couple of months. So we have great people in there. Let me show you. We have about the org chart, I would say close to 70, 75 people actively doing wholesaling. Okay, so what we help is once you join the wholesale inner circle group, you're going to be placed in a team, right? You're going to have a team lead. Typically, the team lead is going to have more experience. It might be a broker, somebody who's done wholesaling in the past that you can bounce ideas off of. And not only that, but have a network of support. So when you join wholesale inner circle, we're going to go over the steps, right? So let me just quickly show you the steps to get started. So as far as setting up your business, right? If you're thinking, well, I'm going to take on wholesaling as of today, great idea. I'm going to tell you what you're going to need. These are like must, okay? You're going to need a Google Voice. So it's a free system from Google, okay, that you don't have to use your personal cell phone to make outbound or inbound calls. So you can use Google Voice. It's a free tool that allows you to send text messages, receive phone calls, make phone calls from a virtual phone number. Okay, so that helps you, and you can create as many numbers as you want. So that helps you with marketing, right? So if you're going to do, let's say, mailers, you can create a Google Voice number for mailers. If you're going to do bandit signs, you can have another Google Voice for bandit signs. So you know what marketing is working for you. And guess what? It's free. So you do need to have a Google Voice phone number dedicated for your wholesaling strategy. The second thing that you're going to need is you're going to need a CRM. Okay, we use Podio. Podio, it's a free CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management System. So a CRM in a nutshell is a system that allows you to keep track of your seller leads, buyer leads, scheduling appointments, any tasks that you have. And Podio, it's a free tool that helps you be organized and keep track of everything that you do when it comes to wholesaling, from putting a seller lead into the system, description of the property, when to follow up next. It's just a great tool and it's free. The next thing, as Paris mentioned, was to get some help, right? You're going to need some help to either answer the phone or perhaps making some outbound calls to prospective leads. So we highly encourage to use virtual assistants, okay? And we use 3 platforms. We use Upwork, we use Fiverr, and we use TaskRabbit. Okay, so Upwork.com is typically for long-term engagements. So people who do, let's say, outbound calls or customer service, right, for your wholesaling business, you can hire them from Upwork.com. Okay, Fiverr.com, it's another website where you can hire freelancers to do small, short-term tasks for you, such as a website, a logo. And talking about websites, one of the websites that I highly recommend, it's a framework to create your website. If you're going to do wholesaling, it's called Carrot.com. Okay, I'm going to put it on the chat. So Carrot.com. Okay, and then I mentioned Upwork.com, Fiverr.com, and TaskRabbit.com. Okay, so those are the 3 websites where you can hire virtual assistants to help you in your wholesale business. But as Paris mentioned or asked earlier, you've got to do at least one yourself. You've got to do something that you fully understand to be able to document every step so that you can have somebody else replicate what you did. Okay. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the second thing that you're going to need to understand is what offer are you going to make the seller, right? You're going to need to know the numbers. So as a summary of what we talked about, you're going to need to know what the ARV is. You're going to need to understand what the rehab or renovation expense is going to be. And finally, we call this the max allowable offer, okay? The most you're going to be able, I'm going to put this max offer, the most you're going to be able to pay the seller. And this typically is the ARV times 70% minus the rehab, okay? And then that's the max allowed offer that we can make to the seller, but we're going to need to subtract our finder's fee. Typically, finder's fee range from 5 to all the way to 20%. Okay, it depends on the property, on the location, and so forth, the condition of the house. But that's in a nutshell what you need to understand if you're going to take on wholesaling. And then as far as lead generation, again, I want to summarize what I mentioned earlier. You're going to be able to do direct mail, and you're going to do direct mail to off-market lead types, such as probates, meaning people who have inherited properties, pre-foreclosures, people who have defaulted in mortgage payments, vacant properties, people who own properties but are vacant and they might be out-of-state owners, okay? Another one is doing bandit signs. Very, very important to have your signs out, especially, let me give you a tip of advice, Monday through Saturday, because many villages have restrictions as to when and where you put bandit signs, okay? Door knocking, right? Nothing like working with the seller face to face, but obviously before you do the door knocking, you've got to identify that the seller is in financial distress, right? Like in pre-foreclosure before you knock on the door. But obviously you're going to be so casual to say, make it sound like you just stumble upon their house, right? Hey, I'm just walking the neighborhood because we're interested in buying properties in the neighborhood. I just happened to stumble upon your house and was wondering if either you or somebody who might be interested in selling their house. Um, we're gonna be paying cash, and we close in your time frame. Would you be interested in? Would you know anybody or yourself be interested? They're gonna think like you just came from the star, right? From the sky, and you're their solution to their problem, right? So all you need to do is be yourself, be very casual, and that's what we show you in the wholesale industry group, right? How to build rapport, how to communicate, how to engage with the seller, understand exactly what they need. For sell by owner, that's huge. Zillow is one of my favorite websites to find a lot of owners selling their own homes. And something to be very mindful of, if you're going to be doing outbound calls, please be mindful of the do not call list, because there are some owners who are in the do not call list. So you have to check the do not call list before you make an outbound call, okay? Just to make sure that you're compliant, because fines are in the thousands, especially if you're a real estate broker. So something to be aware of. Okay, another question is, do we still use the 70% formula in the market now, considering it's seller's market and sellers want more? Yeah, that formula works amazing. So you can continue to use the 70% for sure when coming up with your max allowable offer. So great question. Chantel is asking, when you run comps for a single family home, does the stories of the home really matter? One story, one and a half, etc., or more? So square footage. Okay, so great question, Chantal. When we pull comps, it doesn't matter if it's a one story, two story. What matters is that you have the right square footage and the bedrooms are above ground level. Okay, because you are going to come across some properties that they say, well, it's a 4-bedroom, too bad. Well, guess what? The 4-bedroom is in the basement. That technically does not count as a legal bedroom. Okay, so that's something that you need to be aware of. So all the bedrooms need to be on the first floor, and they all have to have a closet. They all have to have its own entrance. We've seen properties where you have like tandem bedrooms, right? So to get to one bedroom, you have to go through another one. So that's not okay. Some bedrooms do not have closets, so they're considered like dens. They're not technically a bedroom. So that's something that you need to focus on when analyzing or running comps. But again, when you want to get the ARV, you're looking for properties with a similar square footage and similar condition. But obviously, when you want to get the ARV, you're looking for similar properties that have been rehabbed, so that you have an idea of what the selling price is going to be once all the repairs are made. So you're coming across some split levels, 2-story, etc., but the info you provide is very helpful. So yeah, Chantal, it won't matter if it's a 2-story, split level, or ranch. It won't matter. What matters is square footage and that the bedrooms are above ground level. Okay, whether it's a 2-story, split level, ranch, that is just a personal preference from the end buyer. But when it comes to selling the property right now, especially in this hot market, you're gonna sell either a two-story, split level, ranch. I mean, it doesn't matter as much, as the layout. Okay, it has to flow, right? So that's something to be aware of. We've seen houses that the layout is very quirky, right? So it just doesn't flow okay, and those properties are going to take longer to sell. So pay attention to the size of the bedrooms, right? That's important. The overall flow of the layout. People nowadays, they like open space, right? They don't like too many rooms, right? Like boxes, okay? People like open space, that makes it look bigger. So look for that when you pull comps or you look at properties to that become extremely marketable, okay? Now, as far as lead management, follow-up is going to be the key, okay? So what we've developed is something really, really, really powerful. We call these the seller ignition template, okay? So we have a 381 follow-up campaign that we put the sellers into. So check this out, like we send emails, text messages automatically, okay, for the next 381 days. So once we've had a meaningful conversation with the seller, okay, a meaningful, okay, that means that the seller is sort of like a warm or hot lead. They're going to be selling the house in the next 60 to 90 days, okay? So we want to keep in touch with them. So when they're ready to pull the trigger, they call us. So it's super powerful. We automated this seller campaign. We send emails, we send text messages, just to make sure that we are in their mind. As they say, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, right? So we always want to be making sure that they're aware of us. So all you have to do is fill out a form where you put in the seller's contact information, okay, and your contact information, and then the system, the CRM that we have, does it all for you. It automates the follow-up for you, so when the seller is ready, the seller is going to call you. So we're going to put your contact information at the bottom of every single email and SMS that we send out. Okay, so that is wholesaling. Also, it's a great exit strategy because you don't need a lot of money. Like, unlike buying a house, you need reserves, you need money for down payment, you need money for operating expenses. You're gonna need to buy a property, you need at least 15, 25,000, right? Whereas if you're gonna start doing wholesaling, it doesn't take that much. Okay, we've had members that they've done a successful wholesale deal in their first month. I mean, some of them, they get very lucky, some others don't, right? The key is consistency. Whatever you stick to, do it consistently, okay? Every single week. If you're gonna do mailers, do one mailer every single month for the next 6 to 9 months. That's what's gonna give you over 80% of the success rate, okay? That's the key to be successful in wholesaling, consistency, because most people quit too early. That's the biggest mistake. You've gotta have consistency. Stick to it. Okay. Are there any other questions on the line?
Hello, Igor.
Yes, Sam.
Hi, one quick question.
Yes.
The $15,000 profit or the referral fee you mentioned, does it apply to price? Does it make a difference on the price of the property if the property is 100,000 or 500,000? If the selling price is more than 15,000, then we have to do the double closing.
Exactly. Exactly. Just like the example that I showed earlier. So this property, we got it on the contract for 110, and then we're gonna wholesale it for like 135. Okay, this property in Leamington, Austin. But guess what? So we're gonna sell it for 135, but the ARV is like 245. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of meat in the bone. So the key is to get it on the contract at the right price. But if the assignment or wholesaling fee is going to be greater than 15,000, like in this case, we have to double close. So when you double close, you're going to have two closings back to back between the seller and you as a wholesaler. And then we're going to close, but we're going to be using the funds from the end buyer to close on the first transaction. And then from you to the seller, is the next closing, okay? Now, who pays for the closings? Between the seller and you, the wholesaler is going to pay for that, and it's about $2,000, $2,500. It depends on the property price. And between the wholesaler and the end buyer, then the end buyer pays for that closing. Okay. So yeah, if it's more than 15,000, you have to double close, because you always need to disclose your assignment fee to the seller and to the buyer. Okay, so if it's less than 15,000, it's not a big deal. They're going to be okay with it. But if it's more than that, they may have a problem with it, and they might cancel out the deal. So we just want to ensure that everything goes smooth. So in fact, right now, one of our students, and we're working on a wholesale deal that the wholesaling fee is over $80,000. Okay.
Wow.
So obviously it's going to need to be, so we got on the contract for about 110, and it's going to be wholesale for over 200. Okay. So in that case, we cannot do an assignment, right? Because both the seller and the end buyer are going to freak out. So we have to double close on it. So yeah, wholesaling nowadays could be extremely, extremely lucrative. Because of the shortage of inventory. So in other words, we're going to help you become a deal acquisition specialist, where you get a property off market on the contract. You know how to talk to the sellers, what to tell the sellers, and most importantly, get them to sign the contract. So if you want to be part of the wholesaling team, let me send you the link for it, so that you can join. In fact, our next meeting is tomorrow. So we meet every Tuesday at 6:30. So if you're interested in joining tomorrow's meeting, please send us an email to support@ChicagoDealVault.com, and we're going to send you the meeting for tomorrow. Okay, 6:30 tomorrow. And you can also sign up on the website. Okay, so right here, we give you all the information about the wholesale inner circle team. Everything that we do, it's right here. Are there any questions on the line?
Hugo, I have one more question.
Yes.
Instead of assigning the property, I mean, doing the quit claim deed doesn't work, huh? It doesn't get recorded on time or as fast as
Exactly. When you double close, the problem with a quit claim deed, especially now with the pandemic, is that it's, especially Cook County, it's taking several weeks to get a deed recorded. So when you double close, you don't have that issue. Okay, so things are going to happen back to back. Okay, you want to convey title to the end buyer from the seller to the end buyer immediately on the same day. So yeah, you have to do a double closing. Plus, you want to convey a special warranty deed. That's very critical, right? Because a quit claim deed is one of the weakest form of ownership.
Yes.
If I quit claim my property over to you, it's the weakest ownership way that I can convey the property over to you. So it's best to do a special warranty deed or a general warranty deed. That's the best way of conveying property. But the standard way is a special warranty deed, which is what's going to happen when you do a double close. That is why we run title on every single property that we are pursuing, making sure that we can convey clear title to the end buyer before we even do all these transaction and schedule closing and so forth. We want to make sure that that the seller can convey clear title to the end buyer before we get it on the contract. So we run title on every single property that we're looking at. So yeah, Kiana, so we're local. If you're interested, our first meeting, we're meeting tomorrow, 6:30. So please send us an email. We'll be happy to send you an invite to the meeting so that you can join us tomorrow, 6:30. And yeah, it's extremely powerful, right? So we give you the support to start wholesaling ASAP. Yeah, so far wholesale deals in the last couple of months, so it's been amazing. Because right now the market is super hot. So if you have a property in the contract at the right price, we're going to be able to sell it within hours. I mean, sometimes we send out the marketing, scheduling a showing for Saturday. We sell the property even before we schedule the showing. It's just insane. So this is the best time to get into wholesaling. So are there any other questions on the line that I can help you answer?
Yeah, Julio, I just want to know about the pricing.
Oh yeah, right here. So it's $59 a month, or if you do 6 months, it's $287. So we give you a 20% off. So $287 or $59 per month. So there's no commitment. You can go on a month to month, but we're gonna give you, access to the training. We're gonna give you the resources, the support. You're gonna be part of a team. I mean, we're like close to 70 people. So you're gonna be able to bounce ideas, reach out to team leads across. So it's super powerful.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
Hugo, I have a question regarding, for those who joined the wholesale and they started going through the training,
Yes.
most of them don't have the real estate license to do wholesaling, so they're going to work on that. But let's say I send out a postcard and I do get a hit and I use your contract. How do we get around this since I don't have a...
Great question. So we have to be on the contract. So the way we do it is, to engage in wholesaling, you have to be a licensed broker, so you can put us on the contract. So you can put your name on our entity on the contract. So that's how we can get around that. And obviously, when we do the marketing, the blast marketing, to move a deal, to wholesale the deal, we have the rights of the contract. So we're going to make sure that we have an assignment done to us so that we can legally do that. Okay, and then we're going to reassign that right of the contract to the end buyer. So yeah, that's the way around that. If you don't have a license, it's okay. You can just use our brokerage on the contract that you get signed by the seller. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I'm a managing broker. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, just remind everyone that they can do one deal for the whole year. Then the next, it starts over again with one.
Exactly.
One deal a year.
So the first one, absolutely right. So the first one, you can just put it under your name while you get your license. If you don't feel comfortable, you can put our entity, and that should do it. We'll just take it from there and make sure that we're able to move the deal. But yeah, we do all this marketing on behalf, we do the marketing or disposition on your behalf. So we move the deal fast. So we just want to make sure that you are laser beam focused on becoming a deal acquisition specialist, being able to help the owners and get them to sign the contract. There's another question. If you have a lot of volume with warm leads, is it okay for your VA to do the due diligence right after it's signed by the seller, 24 hours to keep a good flow, versus doing the due diligence prior to the contract signing? So yeah, no, absolutely. What we recommend is, once you can engage your VA either before or after. It's even better, right? So that they know what's happening with that particular lead. We want to make sure that the VAs are aware of the entire transaction milestones. Okay, so if you're going to engage a VA, it's best if you keep them in the loop before and after. Okay, have them do due diligence even before, after. But again, if you go through the entire A through Z process, then you can document those steps and have your VA do the ones you feel comfortable, or we like to keep our team engaged from A through Z, okay? So make sure that nobody drops the ball. And then we're having
Hugo, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So how is this different, or how does it work? Like when you already have a license and you have a brokerage, does that affect it? Is this considered something totally separate? I'm just trying to make sure that what I'm doing, if I get into this, it's all legal and I'm not doing something that's going to affect me with my brokerage.
No, that absolutely. So it's totally legal. So that's one of the requirements for you to be licensed to be able to do wholesaling. So that would not affect your license at all. And I'm sure your managing broker would not have a problem you doing wholesaling. So you just need to check your independent contract agreement if there are any clauses addressing wholesaling, because you might need to pay a flat fee or a percentage, let's say if you do a wholesale under your managing broker. They may charge you a percentage.
Right, that's what I was referring to. If I would still have to pay them a fee, or would this be considered something independent?
That is all driven by your independent contract agreement that you have between you and your managing broker. Okay, so typically they want a percentage or a flat fee of everything you do because it's a risk to them, right? They are overseeing your activities, and therefore they want to be compensated for everything that you do under their brokerage. So most likely they will want some sort of compensation. You need to find out what that is. Most likely, I don't think it's going to be in your independent contract agreement, but that's something that you can check with them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, no problem. Oh, okay. Kiana just answered that question. Agency told me no wholesale, so I didn't. You did a LLC. Agency told me. So Kiana, I assume you're a broker and your brokerage did not allow you to do wholesale deals. So yeah, absolutely. Every brokerage is going to be different and they may not feel comfortable you doing wholesales. But again, it's every brokerage and independent contract that you have with them is different. Are there any other questions? Great questions.
Hugo, do you have any of your wholesalers working on north side, north suburbs?
They're working everywhere. I mean, we have 70 people, so they're working everywhere.
Wow, that's good. They cover the whole estate.
Yeah. So Paris, yeah, no, I agree with you. If they're not letting you do, then you might need to find another brokerage. Chantel, does most brokerages ask for a listing agreement or some other document from the seller? So in fact, some of our wholesalers have gotten listing agreements, okay? Because the seller wanted retail price. They didn't want a low ball cash offer. So we got a listing agreement. So if you're a broker, boom, either you give them a cash offer or you get them to sign a listing agreement. So this is another way for you to get listing agreements as well. Oh, Paris, great point. And then once you become part of the wholesale inner circle, it's an option for you to join our brokerage. Okay, if you're thinking about switching brokerages, that's also an option because obviously we're wholesale investor-friendly brokerage.
So Hugo, let's say I decide to go for my real estate license. I need a brokerage, right?
Yes.
Sponsor me.
Yes.
So you have a brokerage, so I could go under you immediately, right?
Correct.
Okay. Normally, how much does it cost to get your brokerage license? I know you got to study and stuff like that, but
yeah, you can study. I would say average from about 600 or so for the training, online training, about 600 or so.
Okay. And any idea on the test? What that costs to take the test?
Yeah, all combined, I would say you're going to spend close to $800 to $1,000 training wise.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Thank
for
you.
the fees with the state, about $1,000, including the fees. Kiana, I couldn't find any brokerage that allows it everyone. I checked and no wholesale. Okay, Kiana. So obviously, you know, we're doing wholesales. We have some brokers, so we can refer you to some brokerages that do allow wholesaling. Obviously, hanging your license with us is another option as well. So yeah, you'll be for sure okay doing wholesales once you're part of the wholesale inner circle group. Okay, great point, Paris, Kiana.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. So yeah, please make sure that you join tomorrow's meeting. Okay, and sign up for the wholesale inner circle, either the monthly or the 6 month that is going to give you 20% off. And then we also have a conference coming up in end of the month. So I want to make sure that all of you are attending. We have 100 spots. It's going to be live and also virtual. Okay, so please reserve your spot. We have only 100 spots for this live conference, and we're going to be talking about wholesaling as well. So I'm going to remain on the line. If you have any further questions, thank you everyone for joining. I enjoy spending this evening with all of you, and I'm going to be here for the next few minutes. If you have any further questions, I'll be happy to answer your questions or help you with any resources you may need.